I purchased the highest lift they make for the Bronco. And there's not a lot of two-door Broncos out there that are this high. I'm a little bit concerned that it'll look funny or handle weird or just be too much. So that is the unknown. What will it look like? Will it be awesome? We want to find out, and I want you to walk away from this video with as much confidence as possible knowing how to install a lift like this on a Bronco like this, because all suspension is pretty similar. So if you understand this, you'll understand a lot of cars, and it'll do you just good knowledge that you'll walk away from. So let's dive into this rough country box and see what we have to install. Upper arms, Rough Country branded. Some sort of plate and another one. QR code for instructions. Risers for the springs. I'm gonna leave this all boxed together. If you're having any thoughts that may sound like 3.5-inch lift, that's it? In that little box? Yep. Very, very simple setup. This style of lift is the most minimal. It allows you to keep the stock suspension and the geometry of it and just lift it up instead of put huge coilovers or such that are way, way more expensive. And this is so cost effective that this might be worth installing, or a 2-inch one that's really simple like this, before you upgrade to a full coilover setup that's way pricier. This might get you by for a year or two until your stock suspension is kind of worn out, and then you really upgrade. So keep that in mind. Just like you, this is when I'd pop out the YouTube video, see what I'm getting into, and then go do it based off my knowledge. But there actually is no video for this yet when I'm doing it. So I'm gonna go look at the Rough Country instructions on the website, and let's dive into it. First time on YouTube, that I've found at least. This is a first. This is a perfect little setup. Got my iPad with my PDF. Let's follow along and get this done. Let's make it easy. First thing, skid plate, 15mm. Lot of dirt. If you don't have tools, I have an awesome Amazon list in the description of every single video. Go shopping, you'll find something you didn't know you needed. More skid plate. There's probably gonna be water in here. Drip. Drip, drip, drip. Somebody forgot to put a bowl right here. There wasn't one right there. I'll have to get one. Next up, unplug the rack and pinion. Looks like we have some clips. Plastic clip pry tool. We'll get this wiring off of here without ruining it. Come on, buddy. There we go. These are all free. Now it's just plugs. Little O-ring seal, puller. These things are useful for so many other things. Looks like there's some little red safety holders. Pull them back with the pry tool. And then at the base of them, there's a spot for you to press on your thumb. These are actually really easy. I took a picture of my phone, the front facing camera. I was able to see that there is a little red safety switch. Did any of you play this game on PS2? Because if you do, you probably remember the soundtrack was amazing, and I just remembered it, so I'm listening to it on Spotify as I work. We're on to the tie rod ends. Let me put everything back and assess what we need. Rack and pinion has a tie rod attached to it, and this is what pushes your wheels in and out to steer the vehicle. We're gonna pop this out. This is probably 17 or 19. 21. The most amazing tool. Need the big impact at Milwaukee. I'm gonna go ahead and zap off the other side. We need this to come out, so I'm gonna give a little. See a little strength. I need to lower it a little. Tie rod bolts, putting them in the corner over here. I'll remember that. I got another tray steel, and I have 2 more of these inside if I need them. This is all about the droop down, so we need to make sure we have disconnected our ABS speed sensor setup and the brake line detached, so when it drops, we don't break anything. 10mm socket. This bracket right here. That should be enough. This single bolt tucked up here. Next we need a 18mm socket. I'm also gonna use, I'll use a flex head. Ball joint removal. Dude, my ratchet's coming apart. What bit is that? Hold on a second, I gotta fix this. Just added this, was in my bigger toolbox. T15? Oh yeah, she's tight now. If you're at intermediate level or above, I've been collecting icon tools from Harbor Freight. Oh my gosh, they have been awesome. All right, where were we? Oh, not bad. Whoa, holy, that had some tension on it. Next up, we have the sway bar and the sway bar end link. We need to remove the nut. This has the Allen key in it. Now we're good. Then swap the 21 for the 18. Let's get the lower strut bolts off. Grabbing a 15mm. We need to get the top of this strut out. This is when I wish I had a power ratchet. I don't have one yet. That's a terrible spot back there. See if I can get something else in there. And I'll just take the other easy one out. I'm gonna see if I can go from the top. Oh, those struts though. Top side, not promising. Gonna try again. So I figured it out. Lift this up. Short 15mm, barely works on the 3/8 ratchet. And I'm able to come in here from the left side and ratchet it off. Next up, axle nut. Whoa. I'm gonna straighten this out a little bit. Thread this back on there a little bit. A little bit of an odd tool. Impact socket, 36mm. This is a big boy, this axle nut. You might need to order from my Amazon list the Amazon axle nut socket set with huge sockets for these, impact style. But wait, there's more. Thread this on. I'm gonna give this a good whack. Another icon splurge, snap-on rip off. I like to avoid using the hard when I can. I was a little worried that this was holding up the operation. So I have a huge pry bar. Definitely need some pry bars. Just push it in here, push this down, and then pull this sway bar and link out. Now we just need to get the rest of this axle out of here. This is when you break out the heavy guy. Nice. ABS brake line's a little tight. I'm gonna pull this out up here. Whoop, whoop. One down, one to go. If you had your eyes on those dirt bikes, if you go to my channel, go to the channels tab, you'll see Moto with Cam. Converted my second channel to all Moto. I was into this way before cars and I want to pick back up a little bit. If you liked the RM250 content in the past or anything else, that'll be on that channel. Day 2 action, we gotta finish up the front and then I wanna get the rear all the way apart, see what we can get done. One of the next steps is removing this roll pin. Comes out pretty easy for both sides. On the passenger side, we have an 8mm bolt right here. That's a heat shield for the control arm. The next step requires something I didn't have, a 24mm wrench, collecting the Icon series basics, so I had to get those. Quality, because I use them all the time, but don't sweat it. Get what you can get. Then, because of that dirt bike, I wanna make sure the compression's good before I go ride. Feels kind of loose, not sure. Might need to do a top end job, so I got a quick connect compression tester from Harbor Freight. Nice. beautiful. I gotta find a place for these. Woohoo! 10 all the way to 24. That'll do. Next up, we're removing the upper control arm. 24, 21. My friend does not want to come off. Holy, these things are on so tight. This side's finally loose. Put our 24 on. Get our socket on here to speed it up now. Almost out. Nuts out. Slide this bolt out. Sweet. It's getting hot. Time to put the heavier hammer on here. Sparks? It smells like it. Slow and steady wins the race. He who has the most patience wins because he does not hit cars. I just remembered something. This is important. Behind here, you need to get 10 mil and get this bolt out and disconnect the steering so that you can get the bolt out of this upper A-arm. Got a marker. I go up in here. Just marked those. And then I'm gonna slide the steering shaft up out of this. Now I can move that out of the way and get this A-arm all the way out. Nut, bolt. Next thing we're gonna do is get the spacers in the big bag that look like this. You want the spacers positioned like that once they're in the vehicle. On the control arms themselves, you'll see a left and a right. Driver's side left. So there's a hole really obvious right here, but the holes that the actual control arm bolt to put these spacers in to make them fit is actually farther back, so don't get that confused like I just did. I'm sitting here scratching my head so hard. And we're in. Gonna go ahead and put the nut on, tighten these up. I'll do the other side, and then we'll get working on the struts. Here's where it starts to get sketchy. Harbor Freight spring compressor. Put your glasses on. I got it rigged up, and this fits so good on this big of a spring. I feel like everything automotive tool related is made for like SUVs. Sometimes you put them on car springs and it's like hard to like make enough space for them. If you know, you know. But this is like got me really confident, so let's see what we can do. So the spring compressor is a 19 mil socket. Got Big Daddy Milwaukee. Do that one a little bit. Let's go down below. Oh, all day. This is comfy. Oh, we're chilling. Let's do a little more down here. We're good. We're good. We have a concoction going on here if you've never done this before. Pass-through socket set from Harbor Freight. Really only use it for this. 8mm socket, 18mm pass-through goes on here. The pass-through ratchet goes on, and then the 8mm through here. And you have to hold these two to get that 18mm socket off. This is the one that's hard to get off unless the springs are compressed. Something to keep in mind is lining up the rubber isolator. Remove the rubber isolator. And in between, in the kit from Rough Country, is the preload spacer. Now we've got our lines lined up again. Now we can put this back together. This has a little divot in it. Make sure that that's where the spring ends. All right, everything's lined up. I'm gonna hold them with one hand. Guess that's good. Bottomed out. I just made the mistake and stripped out this stud, so I gotta grind it off. So you have a stud in the kit and you need to put it in the spacer. You thread it through first. And per directions, you would put this nut on the bottom and then tighten it to suck it down. This is just like a wheel stud, but I found it better to hit it. Got it on a vise if you have one. Have a friend hold it.
Friend?
A dad. Bless my dad's soul for telling me to just go try. I got a M10 with a 1.25 thread. The only one they had at O'Reilly's wheel stud. Literally almost the same, but the base is a little bit thicker, and I just pounded it in. She is solid. So that almost became a situation where I had to order a replacement part. All right, back to the scheduled programming. With the strut back on the vise, we're gonna now put our spacer on. And so one side is taller than the other. I don't know if you can tell. This side is shorter. So we want that side to face the engine with the bolts kind of pointed up on the strut. This way, the short side is towards the engine. Using stock hardware to hold the spacer on. Now take off these scary things. Compressor is off. These lines we made before we put the spacer on is so that when you let go of the spring and the top hat is no longer movable, it's gonna line up because you have bolts back here that need to fit in the vehicle. If these bolts, the way they're positioned, don't line up with exactly how the top hat rotation is this way, it's not gonna work. So that's why we made these lines right here. And they're all lined up after I took the spring compressor off. Earlier we disconnected the wires. Now it's time to get the diff bracket off. So we have the differential supported with this pole jack. Now I have 18 and 21 millimeter. Let's take this out. There is another bolt right here. OEM bracket is out. Before we can get the differential to the lower position where we need it, we need to take off this bolt right here. I put in the new diff bracket and tightened it up way too early. I need to get that other bolt that we just looked at in place first and then tighten that. So remember that when you go to install yours. Gotta align this. I'm gonna get my pry bar out. I just put the wires back in the differential, so don't forget. Before we get any further, I want to grease the ball joints because they don't come greased, and I didn't have a gun myself, so I went down to O'Reilly's. This one was $25, I believe. It seems pretty nice. Hand pump. Sometimes you have the lever. This seems a little easier because you could do it with one hand when you're by yourself. Air bleeder right here. Pull this back. This button will snap it back in. Undo the tube. I had to look this up on YouTube myself. Pull off the cardboard end. If you don't have nails like myself, this guy showed you can use the cap to pull it up. Amazing. I'm gonna slide this in here first. He said like you're drinking a soda. Pop that in there. Now you're gonna have some air in the top up here, and you can, come on, probably get it out with this bleeder because the head doesn't have any grease in it. Take off this little ring. No. There we go. Little flathead screwdriver popped this cover off. And then inside here we have a Zert fitting. Pop your tip on. Start filling it full of grease. This grease right here came out the bottom. I put way too much, but never done this, and now I know how much the other side needs. Take the cover, and we're good to go. It's time to put in the coilover shock, whatever you want to call it. We added the spacer on top of the strut and it makes it so much taller, which actually makes it more difficult to get in here. The shock wants to come out because the angle of where it's at in the lower control arm when this is down. So you're pushing it in and then trying to slide it up into the bolt holes, which is a huge pain. So to inch it in, floor jack, lift, you could probably do it on the ground just fine. But it's a little bit of a game of patience. So I'm gonna get the other side done and then we can button the front end up and move on to the back. I do feel like this thing is gonna be a freaking monster truck though. Everything's buttoned up, I'm feeling confident. Let's take you over to the other side. We'll button it up and I'm gonna walk you through the hard parts and where you need to look out for some things. Make sure you get these holes right because these are a little bit bigger that mount to the shock. Got my punch from Harbor Freight. That one didn't want to thread through. Just being safe, threading this through. Remember, the short side is towards the engine. Not really tracking what happened, but I need to get the stud where this one is. So I made a straight line right here where this stud needs to move right here. To be able to turn this, I just need to compress the spring. Studs are lined up. Looks good. Little 8mm bolt. I disconnected the speed sensor in the hub. Now, no matter how hard I push on this, I cannot get this to go low enough to get the shock in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark the alignment pins and loosen the lower control arm so it drops down all the way. Another minor detail, I put the lug nuts on most of the studs so that if I have a jack here or anything to hold the lower control arm to get the whole thing in place, I don't mess up the threads. I push this knuckle all the way back towards the cab of the truck to put the least amount of tension on the brake line, which it's still loose right now. Marking the last one. That might have dropped it enough. There we go. So I'm trying to get this through the holes and then lift it at the same time. It's kind of difficult. Put pressure on it, left foot. Needs to rotate that way now. Almost there. Yay! 3 nuts on top of the strut, super easy. Pull jack or a jack if you're on the ground. I put it right under the sway bar to push it up so that way I can get this guy in here. Now I can put a nut on. As I kind of push the hub up in, making sure that my axle is sliding through on the splines correctly, and then I can get our toe and link, forgetting the name, this guy in place. So don't get carried away if you're new. This is the end link for our sway bar. I'm gonna go ahead and put my 21mm wrench and then 6mm Allen head. And this keeps the end link from spinning. So I can tighten it with the Allen or the wrench. And then towards the end, I'm gonna do both. Now that's tight. I'll zap the axle on. Keep forgetting the name of this. That's tight for the steering. This is tightened back up. We're tight up top. Next, we need to get the ball joint in. We have a new lock nut that comes with the kit for this upper A-arm ball joint. I need to get it on the ground and get the jack underneath it. So we can see a lot of thread. This is super important. And that's why I jacked it up. So we can get a wrench on the bottom side right here and hold the ball joint from spinning. All right, so this is a 20mm, 10mm on the bottom. You don't want this one to come off. Now I'm going to take the opportunity to tighten the upper control arm in this position. 24 on the right to tighten it, and holding it still on the left with a 21. Now it's time to tighten the axle. Sheesh. Time to do the rear. We're going in. I'm gonna have to support the rear axle, and my pole jack is only so short, so I'm gonna lower it to it. I need to be able to reach up here and get this strut out. 24mm, remove the track bar. Next up is taking the bolt holding the strut in, 27mm. Another one on the driver's side. Up here, 8mm, remove the ABS line, emergency wiring harness. Up here, we're gonna take out our clip from the fender liner. Now we can access the bolts for our struts. And with a 15mm wrench, we can get them out. One, it's never simple. I'm gonna pull out the fender liner so I can get more access because this is super frustrating. Here's a spacer for the rear. The tall side needs to face towards the rear of the vehicle. So I wrote inside top corner. So it's gonna sit in here that way, which you'll see. Now I can pound studs in. Alright, we're ready to mount this. Studs pressed in, slide this on. So the stock bolts are in the right spot. So I made a line right below them in gold. Another one right here, right here. So I can align the new ones with those gold lines and then it'll fit. This lines up with this. Perfect. So this is level. I need to line up this bolt more this way. So I went and kind of marked a spot of how I need to adjust it. My idea of lining it up in the middle worked. I got this side in, all buttoned up. Now let's go do it on the other side and I'll catch you up on the details of sliding this in and some things we had to loosen. What made this easier is holding a screwdriver in right here to hold the shock up while I put the top hat bolts in. Now I just take my 15mm and snug it up. Now we're gonna take a pick, pull down on the whole rear end, stick this through, muscle it around, get your other bolt. Okay, I got it started. Thread it through, twist the nut on, careful, tighten it, and we're good. All right, last few steps, here we go. I ended up loosening these on both sides to get the rear end to lower enough to hook up the bottom of the strut. The next step is we're gonna move the brake line up, so 10mm right here, and another 10mm here, and you can pop that up. Plastic pry tool. Freedom. If you've made it this far into the video, I know that you're pretty serious about this, and I have an awesome Amazon list in the description. You should go check it out, find some things you didn't know you needed, and make the jobs that much easier using the right tools. Like I just popped that little deal off with a little plastic pry tool. Simple thing, but happened really quick because I had the right tool instead of using like a flathead screwdriver or something and then break it. Came with an extra bolt and nut. 13 on the back side, 13 on the top side. Beautiful. Time to move this one up. Slide the new bolt through. Remember the nut on the back side, you're gonna twist it backwards. Twist it to the left because it's on the back side. Yes, sir. It's time to drop the track bar with the bracket. We gotta drill a hole. Track bar usually sits here. Now we're gonna slide our bracket in here. Kind of put our track bar out of the way if you can get it to stay. It's all right. Now we're gonna put that bolt through here, but don't stick it all the way through. On the back side, there's a little spot for the nut to sit so it doesn't turn, because you can't get a wrench back here. And you can stick the bolt through, put it snug, and hold it in place. Up. Come over here, mark that spot, take this out, and then we're gonna drill this out. And these Milwaukee bits just ripped right through this. Let's take our bolt, see if it fits. Oh, so close. Butter. So then slide your hand inside and get that nut threaded on. Let me guess, a 15? Yep. Before I tighten it, slide my nut in, get this in place. Hammer this in. Sorry, neighbors. Pull us tight. Now we must get the track bar in here. I need to get some way more pressure on this. When I took this apart, I noticed the rear end shifted, so I need to see if I can figure that out. I think I got it. Nut on the back side of it up here. Wrench on it. Sweet, we're done. Just kidding, I forgot one thing. Super important that you hook up the brake line bracket and the speed sensor ABS setup. This bolt's right here. If this isn't fitting to here very well, bend this brake line right here to where you need it to be so that this lines up correctly. Little tab on top and then a bolt, and then 8mm right here. Speed sensor, this is all buttoned up, good to go on both sides. I'm gonna throw it up in the air and double check all bolts. Getting better these days, everything's tight. I'm worried that the steering is not even close. I'm gonna go center the wheel and see what happens. Ah, actually I think I got it right. Oh, this is the moment of truth. All right, let's lower it. See if it's a monster truck. It is! Oh man, we gotta get it out of the lift, but it looks ridiculous. Oh, so funny. They said they had like the 1, 2, and then 3.5, and I was like, let's just go all the way. I've never really thought about this till right now, but the Bronco cannot fit under my carport anymore. So good thing there's a little spot around the corner over here I can get by. And I really hope the front end settles because it's a little high, but it should, hopefully. And this is the game of listen for weird noises, see if you did anything wrong. Oh, I can barely get in. We've got to drive to a gas station with lights. Alright, monster truck mode is here. Oh man, we need some wheels and tires. It looks ridiculously high from this angle, and this angle too. And until we get bigger tires, you see the big old rough country upper A-arm. So I got my cousin Justin's Bronco over with 35s, gonna throw them on mine and see if they're big enough. Or we should do 37s. 37s is usually always the answer, but I don't know. Might look weird. Because it's a 2-door and it might look too squished and tall. I had to go steal my cousin Justin's 35-inch BFGs on method race wheels, throw them on the Bronco at least on one side so we could see what it would look like and see what the move is. Plot twist though, we go a completely different direction. I will see you in the next episode, look out for it. Comment down below if you like this look of the 35-inch tires or if you would get the 37-inch. That looks like an old school Bronco with this wide angle. But in real life, I'd say the focal length, it looks like this. It's a 1.5x on the iPhone 13 mini. You're gonna need some horsepower to compensate that lack of aerodynamics, even more so if you put a lift on your Bronco. If you haven't seen this yet, go check out this video right here. We install an intake that makes quite a bit more horsepower than we think. And after that, stick around to the end and go check out the Panda power module. Up the boost. Runs great.